Welcome to Gatecrashers, a podcast dedicated to kicking open the door to your next favorite thing. Our mission, our creed, and our code is this: to make all things more approachable and accessible to everyone. We want you to find a universe that you'll fall in love with. Today, I'm joined by Alex Kugelman, the writer, producer, director of Don't Trip, which is currently on Kickstarter. The Kickstarter closes on Saturday, March 11th, so please click the link in the bio to support this film. Alex, how are you?
I'm great. That was amazing. You did that in one breath. That was very impressive.
Yeah, I always have to do it one breath so I don't mess up.
Yeah, holy shit. Oh, wow.
So before I get into our questions and stuff, do you want to give a brief overview of who you are? What's your story?
Sure. My name's Alex Kugelman. I am a writer, director, and now I'm a producer. I'm from New York, but I live in LA. I've been in LA for about 8 years. I'm sure we'll get into it, but I've been in the film and entertainment industry for the past 8 years, kind of like working my way up as an assistant. And I've kind of taken my own path to make my own independent feature film, which is currently on Kickstarter. We're trying to raise $100,000 to make our own small little independent film. And yeah, we're going to talk about it. I'm excited.
I'm very excited to talk about it as well. Now, I'm not sure how much you looked into me beforehand, but I'm very well known as a hard-hitting journalist, so I start off all of my questions with a pretty strong right hook.
Sure.
What's your favorite sandwich?
Favorite sandwich? Oh, that took a real turn. That's interesting. Like general or like from like a place?
What is if you could have one sandwich right now, anywhere, what would it be?
Oh, that's tough. There's a couple sandwiches I really like. If you're for the LA people, you'll know this place, Bay Cities. They do like a Godmother Italian sandwich that I'm a big fan of. They have very good bread. And I'm from Long Island originally. So it's a big sandwich culture out there. So like getting like a classic deli, almost like a turkey club, like on a hero from like a classic, like Long Island hole in the wall deli. That really does it for me as well. I don't know. Is there a right answer?
No, there's not. So it's funny. We do a lot of comics and then film and things like that, but all comics people go to the Reuben, but it seems film people go more towards what some would say is an Italian. I'm looking at this Godmother sandwich and it looks really good. So
it's great.
It does look like a good sandwich.
It's fun. I guess. I mean, I'm a New York Jew, so I guess pastrami would have been a more obvious choice, like a Katz's Deli kind of thing, which I do really enjoy. But like my mind didn't even go there. I love a Reuben though. I would never say that as like my favorite sandwich by any means, but that's a very good sandwich. Yes.
Yeah, the Godmother looks really good. So that was a good answer. You answered correctly.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Now, your film, Don't Trip.
Yeah.
You've cornered someone in an elevator. What's the pitch for this movie?
Don't Trip is a horror comedy feature film about a struggling screenwriter who's trying to get his script sold in Hollywood, and he's having a very hard time, and he meets this kid, Trip, whose father is like the biggest producer in town. And our main character is like, okay, I'm going to befriend this kid, get in with him, give him the script, and then he'll give it to his dad, and boom, I'll be this big successful screenwriter. But what our main character doesn't know is that Trip is a very troubled young man who is, a troubled Nepo baby, to put it in simpler terms. And they get into this very sort of toxic relationship that really sort of goes off the rails. And it's definitely a show business movie. This is way longer than a 30-second elevator pitch, but it's definitely like in the show business realm, but it's more of like a movie about LA and like the toxic relationships and how people use each other and just the abusive nature of relationships in cities where people are trying to like be very transactional with each other is my pitch. I don't know if Netflix is going to buy that from that pitch, but
I think it's very interesting that you talked about the toxic kind of relationships and things like that, because the film is about them trying to get the script into someone's hand to give it to their parent. Was there Was there at any point where you're like, oh, maybe I'll make this a nice movie about Hollywood? Or were you only interested in being able to tell the story that we don't see as often?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tricky. I think there's a lot of movies that are like the golden age of Hollywood, and like all, there's a lot of, I think there's definitely movies that talk shit about Hollywood also. I don't know. Did you see Babylon?
I haven't, but I've heard how it talks about Hollywood.
I liked it. I liked it a lot.
I liked La La Land, so I'm probably bound to like it.
Well, La La Land, I saw it in theaters. I saw La La Land in theaters at the ArcLight, like Thursday night, opening night, packed LA theater. And it was like such a crazy viewing experience. And I loved it. And then I felt like it aged kind of poorly. Like I was like, oh, like that movie is kind of written by someone who's never actually like spent time in LA. Because it was very like the sparkling city of Hollywood and like had nothing to do with like Los Angeles, where Babylon I thought was like a much more like gritty, I guess not realistic, but like just like it wasn't as scared to like say fuck you to Hollywood, quote unquote. I really liked it. I know it's been a kind of a divisive movie for a lot of people.
Well, you know what? If we're here talking shit about LA, I've only been there the one time last year. What's the worst part about living there other than the traffic? Like I really do get. I understand that pain.
Yeah. First of all, I love LA. I'm from New York and I moved to LA as soon as I possibly could. I graduated college early and just got on the first fucking flight out here that I could. And it took me kind of a while to like appreciate the city, because like coming from, I mean, not that we have to get into a whole New York LA thing, but like, yeah, I'm sure no one's ever talked about that on a podcast before, but
never.
But yeah, I mean, like first of all, when people talk about the traffic, it's like, dude, there's traffic in New York. There's traffic anywhere. Yeah. Anywhere that people are trying to go places, there's going to be fucking traffic. So like, I'm sort of numb to it. You know what I mean? I'm like I've been in LA for 8 years and I drove Uber for a while here. So like I literally I've been to every corner, every pocket of this city, from like Santa Clarita all the way to like Inglewood. I know every angle and every corner of this city quite well. So yeah, like I don't mind the traffic. What's the worst part about the city? It's a good question. I think that the geography can be tough, where it's like I live in West Hollywood and I have friends who live in Venice, and I have friends who live in like Atwater Village, and I have friends who live in like fucking Glendale. And sometimes you just don't see them because they're like, let's get dinner. And you're like, it's a 90-minute drive. You know what I mean? I guess to go back to traffic, but like, it's just far. So it's like, if someone's like, let's meet for drinks, and they're, a 90-minute drive away, it's like, that's like, it's a different city. So I think that geographically it can be tough. That's probably the toughest part of the city for me. Also, it's very competitive. It's very competitive. Every single person in Los Angeles has a screenplay. It's like not even a cliche. I think I moved out here I went to school in Colorado. I went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I was like writing scripts, and like no one else was doing that. And I was like, oh, I'm like hot shit. Like no one else has a screenplay. And then I moved to LA and I was like, okay, I'm going to be this big deal with like my cool screenplay. And like it's like not even an exaggeration. Like I literally went to Gelson's the other day, to a grocery store, and I was checking out, and like literally the guy was swiping me in, and like he like turns to another cashier and he's like, yeah, it's a mini series, but like we might turn it into a pilot. And it's like every single person has a script, has a movie that they're trying to sell, has, you know what I mean? So it's like it can be to be really in the thick of it like that, it's kind of exhausting. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't feel novel or special, and you could kind of like lose a grasp on what you're doing, because it's like everyone is a filmmaker and an actor and a writer and a singer and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So it's like, it kind of like dilutes it, and it's like not as special to you. Yeah. You know what I mean?
I feel like it'd be intimidating too if every single person is going for the one slot to get canceled on Netflix after 3 seasons.
Right.
It has to feel like fuck, how am I going to make something special?
Yeah. I mean, well, that's kind of like what we're doing, where I'm like, well, for so long, that was like the angle, right? Where I'm like, oh, we're like fighting for these slots, right? Like it's like, and like that was really my goal for years, was to just sell a screenplay. I never even wanted to. I mean, I did want to direct. I was too scared to do it. I think like writing is it's a very solitary thing. You can, for very cheap, you can lock yourself in a room by yourself with a laptop and write a script. Whereas directing is a completely different animal. It is, you have to do team management. You are, it's in person. You have to have a lot of different skills to direct, rather than writing is a very solitary thing. So I was like, I don't know how to use a camera. I don't know how to do this, blah, blah, blah. I'm just going to write and sell the scripts. And then that didn't happen for 8 years. Not that I wasn't writing. I was writing. I probably wrote 10 movies, and I was working for, big people, and getting the scripts read, and they were good. And people were like, yeah, these are great. And I was like, okay, cool. So we're going to get them sold. And they're like, no, you know what I mean? Cause it's like, it's not to say that, everyone I work for isn't great and helpful, but it's like, it's just not the way it works, where it's like, there's really big writers out here who are having a hard time getting their shit sold. You know what I mean? Like it's very competitive, where I think, the best chance you have of making a movie is making it yourself. That's kind of the only way that I have seen it done by people on this level. Like it's not enough to just have a script anymore. It's like the barrier for entry is like, oh, you actually have to go make it. Like you have to fucking figure out. It's not enough to write the script. It's like, oh, you got to raise the money. You got to attach talent yourself. You have to then get a DP. You have to get you have to be your own movie studio. I mean, like I'm sure this has been talked about a lot in podcasts and whatever, but like it's 100% the truth in my experience.
So that does bring me to something I've been very interested as I've been researching you and what you've been doing. Lucid Rhino. Because you have to do the goddamn thing yourself. You made the studio. What was that? How did that come about? Because it's you. I assume they're your friends. I don't want to put that on them. Trevor and Kevin. How did that all come together?
Trevor Rothman is my best friend in the world. We met in college in Colorado, and he's like a producer. He's a television producer. He's produced like The Masked Singer. He's produced like for Rihanna and like Justin Bieber and like the Comedy Central roast. And like he's been doing this since he's been like PAing since he was like 16, and he's kind of like worked his way up. And we kind of moved out here together at like the same time. And he kind of always wanted to do features, you know what I mean? Where it's like, but it's like, you can't, I think he wants to produce features and TV shows and all that kind of shit, like narrative stuff. But he comes from a world where it's like a lot of money, where it's like to make something like the Comedy Central roast or the Masked Singer, it's like, yeah, you need fucking, $20 million, whatever, to do that. It's a big thing. Where I kind of came from it from a different angle, where I'm like, let's scrape together some money and just fucking shoot something, and together we've kind of have met in the middle, where that's like kind of where this movie happens. Kevin Delgado, who also is one of the top, he's like, there's 3 people at Lucid Rhino, which is Trevor and Kevin started the production company. Trevor's the founder. He's like the main like producer, like business side of things. Kevin is our cinematographer, who's just like an absolute genius, like anything with a camera or any sort of actual, thing. He knows how to shoot, light, do everything. And then I'm sort of like the writer. So it's like we kind of have this trifecta where it's like Trevor's business, I'm like writer, creative, so to speak, and then Kevin is like technical on the camera. I mean, we all sort of, like it all blends together. Like if you watch the Kickstarter video that we did, like that that was just the 3 of us who shot that, and we had an actress, her name's Sarah, she was excellent, play the role. But yeah, I mean, like we just kind of learned to bounce off of each other's skills, because like we all need each other. There really is nothing like, if one of us isn't there, it's very hard to do all of it, because it's like I can't shoot and Kevin can't write, you know what I mean? So it's like we can't,
3-headed monster. So it's like,
Kevin's much more skilled and better at what he does than what I do. So it's a whole different conversation. But
yeah, I love the energy of just doing it yourself. So I'm glad all three of you have like three different angles coming at this.
Yeah.
Now this is mostly being done on Kickstarter. So where I looked at your breakdown and everything, where do you get those numbers? Like, is that something all three of you work together to kind of put together what the price is going to be for this film?
The budget?
Yeah, the budget.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, that's where Trevor's skills come into play. I mean, Trevor is an incredible producer. I mean, he's done line item budgets for major, stage shows, and like he literally, we sat for a long time and looked at the script and broke it down scene by scene, all the actors, all the locations, everything, and he was able to create a line item budget. And he was like, "This is what we need, bare bones, to make the movie." And I was like, I want to raise that on Kickstarter. And everyone was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. and well, I was really I don't know, because I had done the whole thing where people read the script and they were like, "This is really good. You should take it to a production company and they should develop it," and blah blah blah. And I was like, okay, if we do that, then the movie will not get made, because it's just, they're going to read it and they're going to be like, okay, this is great. Let's set a meeting in 6 months and we will talk about it and we're going to give you notes. And then we want you to do a rewrite of the script for free. And then you'll rewrite it for us in the way that we want it. Come back to us. We'll take another 6 months to read it. And then we're going to tell you that we're going to pass. So I was like, that had been my experience with a lot of things. And I was like, I cannot do that. I was like, we need to get the money and shoot the movie, or it's not. In my mind, there were two ways that it's going to happen. It's like, we either raise the money independently and shoot the film, or we don't do it. Like, that's it. Yeah. Those are like the two ways. And like, yes, we might have to go and get some more money after the fact of the Kickstarter. But like, now that we're going to have $100,000 raised from Kickstarter,
it's easier.
It's going to be way easier. Yeah. And now that the train is moving and we got some cast attached, we have Will Sennett, we had some other really cool people, really amazing talent that everyone will know, like, really amazing what has happened just from getting the ball rolling. I mean, like, because it's like, no one wants to get on everyone wants to get on a moving train, and now people are like, oh shit, 800 people donated, there's $100,000, there's this guy's in it, you know what I mean? It's out there, it's a real thing, rather than just being a 90-page script that's flat, you know what I mean? Like that. It's like, it's
easy. And I'm not speaking for you, but I guess it has to feel better knowing you have more control. Like, it's your story. Like, you want to be able to tell it your way.
Yeah. I mean, also, it's like, I don't know. I think people look at Kickstarter, especially in Hollywood, with like, it's like dirty. Like, it's like you couldn't hack it, so you have to do a Kickstarter kind of thing. And it's like, I don't know. It's I don't think so. I mean, it's like, look, you're begging someone for fucking money to make a movie. It's like, why not?
Somewhere.
I view it as like pre-sales. You know what I mean? It's like, if you donate $25, it's like you're getting a digital copy of the movie, which is what you would pay on iTunes to rent it. So it's like, you're pretty much just like it's like pre-sales. You know what I mean? And it's like, once you get over that stigma, which like, I never really had it. Maybe it was a little bit. I think a lot of other filmmakers do. I think a lot of people want to, and me included for a while, I was like, okay, I want to write a script. I want to give it to a producer. They're going to go to someone. They're going to get $5 million in a check. They're going to come back to me with that check, and then we're going to make the movie. And that just does not happen. Like, maybe in like some world that would happen, but hasn't been my experience. And it's like, I don't want to wait around and cross my fingers for that $5 million check to just appear, because you will be waiting until you die for that to happen. It's not going to happen, like, unfortunately. But fortunately, there are places like Kickstarter where raise $100,000. You can do it. I mean, I am like living, breathing proof of that. And it's like, I'm not a celebrity by any means. Like, not even remotely close to being a celebrity. I don't have any following. I was able to, I worked with this guy. His name is Justin Giddings. He's known as like the Kickstarter guy. I highly recommend him to anyone who's going to do a Kickstarter or any crowdfunding campaign. He has done over like 300 campaigns and he's raised over $10 million. And he kind of like guides you and has the system that helps you raise the money. And like, it's been really awesome. I mean, like we've raised $90,000 in 3 weeks. It's like fucking crazy. It's not easy. It's been one of the like hardest, most stressful, ventures of life, but yeah.
And so it's other than his like plans and stuff, it's just kind of a lot of self promotion. Like, are you like, how are you getting this out?
I have a really big team. I have like a really big team of like associate producers that I'm working with who are all amazing. And it's like, basically we're just all blasting the word out there and just telling every single person we know about the movie. Like I think that, have you ever done a Kickstarter for anything before?
So I haven't, but hearing you talk about this is funny because my background was comics for a long time. There's so many projects that get funded just through that. Like that is how most people get their independent stuff done. I know Skinamarink had a little bit of that. A couple of years ago, when they did that, and that movie made like I want to say really well. Like a million at the box office, something absolutely wild for horror, especially for what they did it on. So it's interesting seeing it from your angle and knowing like all of these people who the only way they can get their things done is through Kickstarter.
Yeah. And there's really an art to Kickstarter too. It's like I did a Kickstarter a couple of years ago for a short that I actually directed with Trevor, and we were like, "How hard could it be? We'll just need to raise $10,000. We'll put this out there. We'll put a link up. We'll CC some people on an email. We'll throw it up on an Instagram story, and like we like barely raised like $7,000 from like friends and family because it's really hard. If you don't have a plan to get your Kickstarter funded, if you don't have a marketing plan and like a whole team and a whole place, it's like, good luck. It's really hard, like it's its own whole beast. Like, I mean, put up a link on your Instagram story right now and see how many people are going to donate to that. And it's like, it's going to be a pretty low conversion rate. It's like you need to have a very specific plan of action to get this thing done, which I was very lucky to work with someone who's done it so many times. And it's worked out. Yeah, hopefully we make more than $100,000. Yeah. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. But like, again, like self-promotions, we've had to do everything we've done just from talking about it. So it is interesting to see like you're trying to sell a product while I'm just like, hey, read our shit. Yeah. But we talked enough about the Kickstarter and stuff. I do want to talk about the movie itself. Sure. So the movie you have described as a horror comedy, and I've seen you compare it to things like Cable Guy, which is a very interesting comparison. But before we get into like the comedy and all that stuff, I'm curious, what are some of your horror scenes that have stuck with you the longest? Like, what are the things that have imprinted on you for forever?
It's an interesting question. I was really scared of horror movies for a long time. I mean, probably until like, maybe like 10 years ago. Like I was just very scared of horror movies. I mean, I remember going to Blockbuster as a kid, and there were, when I was like 5 or 6, and there were certain aisles I couldn't walk down because I was so fucking terrified of just the VHS covers of specifically Chucky, Child's Play, just terrified me. Just that face of the doll is just so terrifying. And like even like just seeing like pictures on like Google Images of like The Exorcist of like Linda Blair's character, really, really horrifying. There have definitely been, I don't know, one of the scariest horror movie experiences I've ever had was probably because I was young and it was like a theater experience. I was like 13, and I saw When a Stranger Calls, the remake of that movie. Remember that?
Yes.
Fucking terrifying. I mean, I was so scared. I mean, I think it was the experience of it, like where I was like 13 and I was in a theater with a bunch of other dumb 13-year-olds. Like it was just like that moment and that energy that was just like so terrifying of that movie.
There's something about like those specific types of horror movie. Like because were probably around the same-ish age. I saw Prom Night, or maybe it was just Prom at that point.
Yeah, I remember that.
In theaters, and it was like, I watched it recently. I was like, this wasn't scary at all, but like everyone in the theater was screaming. Like there's this really cheesy scene where like a mirror closes, and like it's interesting to see those horror movies that like people don't often talk about, like be ones that have had a lasting impact.
Yeah. I mean,
When a Stranger Calls. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think also it's like it was probably like the time where I was like babysitting for the first time, and that movie is about someone babysitting alone in a house, and I was like, oh, this is just like the most terrifying fucking thing ever. And exactly, it's like it's less about the movie, because it's like I'm sure if I watched that movie today, I'm like, oh, it's like a C, cash grab horror movie remake, nothing too special. But I think at the time, the context of it was everything to me. Like it's like, I don't know why this comes up, but like people always have to like, what's your favorite movie? And always like top 3 at least is Dumb and Dumber for me, where like, because I love that movie so much, and it's not one of the best movies ever made. You know what I mean? It's not like
formative. Like it was
exactly.
Yeah.
It's so ingrained with like my family, and like just watching that movie as a kid with like my younger brothers, and it's like so like there's so much like context to it that has so little to do with, it's not like, it's not a very cinematic film. You know what I mean? It's not 2001 Space Odyssey or whatever, but like
come on.
I mean,
you'd rather watch that than 2001. Like,
yeah, like,
I'm not trying to put you in a spot because you want to make films, but like, yeah.
No, but exactly. It's like, it's the context of everything, you know? And then obviously like I started to get really into like more modern, like Ari Aster's like shit. Like I really like Hereditary and Midsummer. And, like
Hereditary rules.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, he's great. I like Midsummer a lot. I really like Barbarian. That was like probably my favorite movie of last year. Just because it blended a lot of different genres, and like I'm like a big fan of like maximalist, like where it's like, because it's like that movie works so well for me, because it's like when it tries to be scary, it like goes full fucking like balls to the wall and is trying to be like the scariest movie you've ever seen. And when it's trying to be funny, it's trying very hard to be funny, and it works, which is like, I kind of have that approach in my writing as well, where it's like I feel like I see things that are like, oh, it's like, they're like teetering on it, where it's like, oh, this is kind of creepy, or like this is like kind of funny, where I'm like, no, if we're trying to be funny, it's like I want someone to like get hit in the nuts like with a rake. You know what I mean? And when it's scary, I want like the fucking big jump scare. Like I want like I want to like feel that emotion. I don't want to like teeter around it or like subtle about anything. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I really want to, because the horror comedy aspect is really important. And Barbarian was written by God, I'm blanking on his name, from What Is Kid You Know? Like he's like a big comedy guy. So like a lot of comedy writers and directors and things like that have moved over into horror recently, and like are taking it. Like Jordan Peele, like starting comedy, is now taken over. Yeah. What the way I phrase this is, horror and comedy are two genres that are consistently hooking up. What about laughing and fear go well together for you as a storyteller?
It's a good question. I think they're just both like really guttural, emotional things, and they're undeniable. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if you're scared of something, it's just it's like a gut feeling. You know what I mean? Where and laughing is the same way. It is an undeniable thing. Like, people. I have read a lot of scripts, I was an assistant for years. I was a script reader for different production companies for years. And I would read script after script after script of movies that were considered comedies. And I wouldn't laugh, like I would read 100-page comedy script by very, very well-paid big comedy writers, and I wouldn't laugh once. And I was like, where is the fucking comedy? And it was the same thing with scary shit too, where it's like, oh, I would read 100-page script of like a horror movie, and I'm like, this isn't scary. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of like made it my mission, where it's like, if you're if I'm not laughing at my own shit, or if I'm not scared in the moment of my own thing, then like other people are not going to be. So it's like, it has to really, really feel that emotion in the script, or it's like, it's not going to be there when you get there. You know, there's no, I know this is kind of going off on a separate tangent, but like, I really like try to like hit for the gut. You know what I mean? When I write, like, I don't like I made a short film a couple of years ago where I was like, it's going to be a really subtle nod, and we're going to have these little Easter eggs and clues about like what the movie's about and like all these metaphors and blah, blah, blah. And then we made the movie, spent all this money, we put it out, and like 9.9 out of 10 people were like, yeah, it looks great. I didn't know what the fuck it was about or like what you were trying to say or anything. They're like, it was cool. And that was really formative for me in being like, oh, like I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be the carpet was red because, you know, it's the emotion of the heart or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? Like, it's not about that. I'm more like, yeah, let's just fucking tell us what it's about kind of thing.
I like that. I love the maximalist approach to pretty much everything. Like, I'm a Lerman guy. Fucking anything that man does, I'm in. As long as you're like, oh yeah, Baz Luhrmann's, I'm like, I'm in. Whatever. Yeah. Just because like everything he does is so in your face.
He's hardcore with it. I don't know if I go that crazy, but
it's just who he is.
Yeah, so I like it though. Guy. I mean, like, I respect it. His movies are very big and very expensive, and like, sure, I'd look. That would be it. Yeah.
So you're not shooting for those types of budgets right now?
Oh yeah, Austin Butler is in this one. He's doing the accent. We're going all out with him. Yeah,
I think he should stick. That's my biggest pet peeve. Is like, he's like, yeah, I'm gonna get rid of it. It's like, why? Just be Elvis. Why not? Just fucking go with it. Who cares? Yeah, he's dead. Rules. What's he gonna do? Stop you?
Yeah, exactly.
No one can tell you you're not Elvis. So with your movie, you have Will Sennett as Trip.
Mm-hmm.
Will is well known on TikTok for his comedy, which is I don't really know how to describe it, but it's kind of out there.
Yeah.
His comedy is just kind of odd. Yeah. What about him speaks to the character of Trip? Like, what do you think makes him the right fit for your character?
That's a good question. I think Will is going to be a very big movie star. He kind of has this, like, he just has a real intense quality to him, and he's very funny, and he's just very and he has a real presence to him. He really does, where like he just is this fucking kid. He isn't the character. He's a very sweet person, and like, he is kind of nothing like this character, but like the character is very similar to a lot of the characters that he plays on social media, where it's like this like very like in your face, like, yep, fuck you, man, kind of like thing. It's not like that, you know. I'm not doing him justice at all, but like, it's a very like abrasive, like intense kind of like, you don't know, it's like a wild card kind of guy. And the reason I bring up Cable Guy a lot, because he kind of does remind me of like a Jim Carrey, where it's like I just think he's just so fucking funny. And like, to me, Cable Guy is like, they're just like doing ISO on Jim Carrey, and they're like, all right, just go, you know, like letting Jim Carrey run with it in a lot of scenes, where like, that's what I want to do with Will, you know, like, where I think he's so funny, where I'm a big fan of like doing improv. And like, if you have an amazing comedian, it's like, why wouldn't you let them just riff it out? So like, I am excited to work with him and just kind of like let him riff on everything. Yeah.
That's interesting. So if you're doing improv and stuff, how hard would you be on your script? Like, how everything is pretty much laid out. You would allow for kind of deviations and things like that?
Yeah, I think it like, I think there's moments where it's like, okay, like do the scene, and then when we get to the bit, riff it out, you know what I mean? And like, take it from there, you know what I mean? Where it's like, there's sections that you can improvise, where it's like, I mean, I hear people being like, well, we just show up on the day and like, we don't even know what we're going to do. And it's like, I am not in that
sounds
camp
like a nightmare.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't know. Like, I watch a lot of interviews with Steven Spielberg, who's like, obviously like at that level where he's, you know, God mode and he can do whatever he wants. But he's like, yeah, I don't even know what we're going to shoot when we just show up. He's like, I just figure it out. And I'm like, that would be sick if like I could figure out a way to do that. But I'm like, nope, like got to shot list the fuck out of this thing and like have a very, very, very hyper specific plan, at least going into the day, and then in that be like, okay, this is where I can do some improv, or like I'll write out like 20 alts for a line and then I'll just throw them at the character and then they could just sort of riff it out as it plays in very specific little moments. I think that there are specific things that need to stay scripted. I mean, I think different directors have a different approach. Like, I think the Coen brothers are, and I am by no means comparing myself to any of these fucking people, but the Coen, just from like watching thousands of hours of YouTube interviews, they have like stated, they're like, yeah, there's absolutely no improv. Everything that you see on screen has like been scripted to a T. So there's different approaches to it. Like, I don't think that there's one way.
I honestly didn't actually know that about Steven Spielberg. So he just like let that little fucker from E.T. just show up and do whatever he wanted.
Yeah, that was all improvised. He wasn't that the alien.
They just captured him. They just let him do whatever.
Like, we thought it was going to be a guy. Like, we didn't even know it was going to be an alien.
Yeah, he just showed up. He looked like a scrotum. We just let him go with it.
He fucking showed up on that.
Well, do you have any fears going into making a full feature picture?
Oh no.
What is something you weren't expecting to think about? What have you not expected to take up so much room in your mind when working on this?
That's a good question. I didn't think the Kickstarter would be this consuming. I mean, it's kind of become its own movie in and of itself. Like, I started prepping for the Kickstarter in September, and then we went live in February. And like, the prep of getting the Kickstarter ready and getting the team ready in those 5 months was its own pre-production for the Kickstarter, which was its own movie. It's not we've raised a sizable chunk of money, but it's not a coincidence. I have a really, really amazing team that I've spent the past 6 months building, spending hours and hours on Zoom interviews with people, convincing them to work on this movie with me, convincing them to help me, and asking other people for money. And it's been a crazy road there. I mean, there's going to be a lot of other obstacles. I think leveling up in terms of a feature, it's like on a short or something, it's like, all right, let's just get a couple people together, get a guy, and we'll shoot it. But now we're like, okay, well, we want this actress and she's not going to do it if it's not SAG. And now we have to get a lawyer. And now that lawyer has to review contracts and we have to pay that lawyer. And, it's like they're even on a small movie. I mean, this is going to be in terms of movies, this is not a big movie, but even to do that. And now that I feel more comfortable, in which it was a lot of trial and error of being like, okay, we got to find a lawyer, one that we could actually afford, and like get some money and do all these things. I mean, they're not massive obstacles, but they are new obstacles. And I know for a fact there are going to be even more as we get into this.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's a tricky thing, like directing, where it's like, it's a very expensive art form. You know what I mean? Where it's like, how much practice can someone have with a fucking crane, like as an actor, as a director? It's like, how many times as a director could I afford to fucking pay to have, okay, and then we're going to get the Russian arm on the car and then I'm like, I don't have money to do that. So it's like, not that we're going to be doing that on this movie, but like, you can only be as prepared as the things that you've done. And like, thankfully I have a really amazing team, like our DP Ken Delgado, where like I'm like, I don't even know how to fucking turn on a camera. Like, he uses like these Reds and Aries and like fucking fancy things where it's like, if you literally told me to go hit record on the camera, I wouldn't fucking know how to do it. Like it's not.
And they're like fancy, like all the things you need to like learn this stuff, they're fancy as shit. So like, it's not easy to get your hands on them without the money. So
no, it's incredibly technical. And it's like, or even like, I made a short film before this. Like I wrote a feature film called The Bachelor, and then we made a short version of it as like a proof of concept. And even that, I was like, all right, I'll just shoot it on a Blackmagic with my friends, and like then I'll edit it. I know how to use Final Cut. And then we fucking shot it, and then we got like a hard drive of it. And my friend's like, yeah, you don't even have the laptop to upload the files on your computer. I'm like, oh, I'm like, I can't even physically do. I'm like, I don't even have the equipment to touch that, and then let alone like know how to edit. I'm like, so it's like once you start leveling up to a certain degree, it's like, shit gets expensive. And thankfully, very, very thankfully, I have amazing friends like Kevin, my editor. His name is Tyler Farrow. He's a fucking genius, and he knows how to edit. He edits documentaries, he edits feature films, he edits shorts, and he's a very good friend of mine. And thankfully, he was willing to help us, with my short.
That's awesome.
And everything. Yeah.
That's always cool. I love the idea of like, you're not asking for people above you, you're asking for your people.
That's been the biggest, and that's kind of what the movie is about. And it's been one of the hardest pills to swallow in my entire life, where I was like, for so long, I was trying to get these people who were like really, really at the top to like extend, like to like give me a hand and like pull me up. It's like, that very rarely happens, like it very, very rarely happens that way. And the people who actually are going to be your biggest asset are the people who are kind of like on the same playing field with you, and like who you can like go to, and people who have hard skills. That's the biggest thing, like I think that in LA, you talk about like, what's your least favorite part of being in LA is that you move here and you meet a lot of people who are like, I'm an ideas guy. And you're like, okay, well, what does that mean? And they're like, well, like I have cool ideas, and like maybe I could get us some money. And those people are a dime a dozen out here. And 99.9% of the time, they don't have ideas and they don't have money, and like they're going to waste your time. So it's like, you need to find people with like hard skills who like know how to turn on a camera, who know how to use sound equipment, who know how to actually edit on, have their own editing rig. People who know about lighting, people who are gaffers, people who are actual makeup artists, sound designers, people who like have these hard skills, because those are hands down the best assets. And this is something I talk about all the time, where it's like, everyone's like, how do I get an agent? How do I get in with these people? And like, and it's like, they don't give a shit, and it's like, they're fine. They're great people. And like, I have plenty of friends to do all that stuff, and that's great. But it's like, it's just kind of a different world, it's like, you just need to focus on making shit. That's really it.
Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say all that, because like, those are the people who I feel personally are like underappreciated, because like so much goes into making one product. You don't often see the people who are the ones doing it. You just see the one with the name attached. So
totally. I mean, like, the below the line is, I mean, like, sit through the end credits of a movie. Those are the real people who actually make it happen. People who like the people who have like, quote unquote, helped me the most are not the people you would think, you know what I mean? Like, where it's like, they're the ones who actually help make the thing come to life, which is like really it. I mean, I think me included, I was looking for an angle for so long. I was looking, okay, well, maybe if I write something for this person and they'll give it to this person, and then, we'll get a little money from that, and blah, blah, and then that'll, and it's like, I just haven't seen it happen that way. And it's also not fulfilling, because it's like, for so long, I was writing things where I was like, I'm going to write something that's going to sell. That was like my big thing. And I tried doing that for years. And I was like writing with this angle of like, not necessarily making something that I was interested in. I mean, I was interested in seeing it, and like, it was my voice, but like, I wasn't coming at it from this place of like, like, this is my favorite thing. Or like, I was like not putting things in the script because I'm like, that's not marketable, or this wouldn't sell. And it's like, it's not going to fucking sell anyway. So who gives a shit? Like, it's like, it doesn't even fucking matter. Like, just write the thing that you want to see.
Create art that you want. Like, make the thing that you want to see.
Totally. Because it's like, they're not going to fucking make it anyway. So fuck it. You know what I mean? It's like, and also it's like the market changes, you know what I mean? Or the quote unquote market change. Like, I remember, like, I was writing the script, I was writing The Bachelor, and I wrote it. The Bachelor is a romantic comedy about two, a guy and a girl who con their way onto The Bachelor, and then they pretend not to know each other so they can like rig the show. It's a very classic, like, no brainer Netflix kind of rom-com kind of movie. And that's why I wrote it. I was like, okay, guaranteed this is going to sell. And it didn't, spoiler alert. But, the biggest note I got from everyone who read it, because this was like a couple of years ago, they were like, the main character, this female main character, is not likable. We need someone like Ted Lasso. That was the note I got from so many people. They're like, Ted Lasso, Ted Lasso, Ted Lasso. We want someone nice and squeaky clean and likable. And I was like, okay, I went back to the drawing board and I made it like this nice, squeaky, shiny thing like Ted Lasso. And then as soon as I finished the script, a show called Squid Games came out. And Squid Games was like the most violent, fucking dark, like depressing, like, most fucked up show you've ever seen. And by the time I finished the script, everyone was like, oh, well, it should be like a Squid Games kind of thing, like dark, like gritty. And I was like, okay, like, you're going to be like chasing this trend forever. And by the time that you finish the thing, it's like, it's not going to be the thing anymore. Like it just doesn't work that way.
Damn. Well, Alex, I'm so glad I got to chat with you. Where can people find you online? I'm going to link the Kickstarter everywhere that I can.
Amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate that. You can find the Kickstarter, don'ttripmovie.com. You can find me at Alex Kugelman on Instagram. You can find our movie at Don't Trip Movie on Instagram. Please check it out. Give some money. Buy a hoodie. Buy the movie. You can get the movie for $25 and have it before literally anyone else in the world will have it. Come be a part of it. And thank you so much for having me. This was so awesome. I loved it.
Thank you so much. You can find us at gatecrashers.fan.